Perry.
To say they weigh a lot, equal to Jesus, which I completely disagree with, right? And this is the reason, like, they always say, well, we're not only about scripture, we have a lot of other stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think Jesus was interested in all other stuff. Like,
well, actually, Jesus left us a church. He didn't leave us a book.
Yeah, the scripture came
Jesus
after he
is a
died.
congregation. The church is not a physical building.
Yeah, of course, it's not a physical building. The church is a congregation of people. He left us his apostles. He left us a church, and so that's the reason of the meaning of apostolic church. And so, I do believe in the apostolic approach and the apostolic religion.
Yeah, she's apostolic.
And I do believe that is the purest way of looking at it. And I doubt that any priest is contradicting Jesus. Maybe his interpretation might have been contradicted to you, but I don't think that they're contradicting Jesus. That would be heresy.
Orthodoxy at its core is you believe in your church. You believe in your local church, what your church father says. That church father is not going to...
No.
Yes.
I disagree. But I have found more dialogue and more kind of like Socratic method in the Orthodox channel than in the Catholic one. And I actually believe that the Orthodox is in that approach like much more similar, let's say, to Judaism, in the sense that they actually challenge each other and they go harsh on their own opinions on things, and then they come up with a conclusion or not.
So let me tell you something about culture in Jewish history, and this might help. This might be an added detail, right? There was a guy named Maimonides, the Rambam. He wrote the first real major Jewish code of law, which he thought was going to be was the purest representation of Jewish legal thinking. His books were burned when he wrote them. And now we hold them up.
Christians built them.
Fine, people, but also Jews didn't like what he did also.
Spinoza did nothing wrong. Okay.
Spinoza was excommunicated, and now there's like a legitimate,
he did nothing wrong.
right? So the irony, right, of the Rambam thinking that he was writing the final book of Judaism, of Jewish law, it is the most commented on Jewish book besides the Bible. In other words, right from the beginning, people started to argue with him. So Jewish culture doesn't really, right? Individual communities, individual methodologies, there are individual philosophies in Judaism, but I wouldn't say that there's one pure kind of a thing. The part of our whole philosophy in Judaism is diverse opinions. We say there are 70 faces to the Torah, right? Which means we can interpret it in dozens and dozens of different ways, and provided that they're like close to the text, right, or use something real that's in the text, we accept them as legitimate interpretations.
So many calls this morning.
I would strongly urge you to look a little bit more into the things you were talking about, because that's not Orthodox Christianity to me. I'm just saying, like, you can even look at the 2018 schism. Every church is different. Every church in every country is different. If you want debate, if you want philosophy, I would say go to Protestants. That's what.
No, I'm never gonna go to a Protestant one. There's sola scriptura, and I don't believe in sola scriptura. They took like 20 books of the Bible. I'm definitely not going to a Protestant.
What about your monks and nuns? Don't they have like nice old philosophical texts that they're reviewing in their ancient monasteries?
I want to get closer to the purity of the philosophy. I'm definitely not going to
Protestants are not literal, which means they're not open to the idea of different ideas.
It's something. Protestants are tap dancers. They're pick and choose. They decided to take out the Septuagint.
Right.
They decided to do it sola scriptura. For them, they are the owners of the truth, and I don't want that.
But
If I want to
what it leaves you
understand,
with
if
is
I
four
want to
gospels,
understand
but it
Christianity,
leaves a
its
lot of room
purity
for
of the philosophy, if I
the
want to
spirit of
understand,
Jesus, Isa, this is what you need to understand. When you have all these, first of all, you need to understand that four
Stop
gospels.
trolling her, Samson.
Who decided we only go by four gospels? Someone decided that as well.
it doesn't matter, Samson. You're
It
missing the
doesn't matter.
point.
The church. She wants to follow the history and development of the church. She doesn't care about people that read the
I'm not
book.
trying to get close to God. I'm trying to get close to the philosophy. And if I want to get close to the essence of the actual Christian philosophy, I'm not going to go to a Protestant. That's the last person I should go to.
Right, she
Because
doesn't
they
want
have
the
all
book,
their
she
own
wants the church.
interpretations. They have all their own interpretations.
I think you have misconceptions about what Protestantism is about. So I think I strongly urge you to look into it.
Trust me, as a Christian for all
Yeah, but
my
you're
life,
Catholic. You're applying a
I have
Catholic
been friends
framework,
with
right?
many of them, and I do know what Protestantism is.
Have you spoken to the ones in the US or the ones in Europe?
A lot, especially
All of
here in
them.
the South. A lot. Of course.
Everyone in the U.S. is a Protestant.
Yeah, but US is different than Europe. The rest
It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. That's kind of how liberalism is different,
most of the
socialism is different.
Protestants that I speak to are from the U.S. I know
Right.
Protestantism.
Yeah, and this is why I'm saying you have a misconception because you.
I know
Protestantism.
I know Protestantism in Guatemala. I know Protestantism in the U.S. I know
Have you met a nice Anglican?
in the UK, the Anglicans have a lot of Anglican friends as well. I do know Protestantism. Protestantism is the furthest from actual Christianity.
Take
You
that,
see,
Samson.
that's a Catholic framework. You said what you just said, and
It's
it
her
doesn't really
personal
affect-
informed framework from her personal research.
No, it's a Catholic.
It's not a Catholic informed framework when she has herself interacting with each of these faiths.
I'll explain why. She just said Protestantism is the furthest from Christianity. How do you know, Isa? Can you
From the essence of Christianity and the way,
What is the
one of
essence
the
of
main
Christianity?
things that I know
Don't
is
yell.
because one of
Explain
the
to me
main
what is the
reasons
essence
why
of
I believe
Christianity.
this, one of the main reasons why I believe this is because Jesus gave us a church. He didn't give us a book. And Protestants are sola scriptura. They 100% rely only on the book, not on the church and the oral tradition. They don't.
Okay.
Jesus,
So why
why yelling? Okay.
why are you cherry picking what Jesus said? It's not
No,
what we
they
do.
are cherry picking. I am
No, you
trying
are
to
cherry
get closer
picking
to
what
the
Jesus said.
actual philosophy of Jesus.
It did not have
You're cherry.
She's
You cherry picking because he didn't change the law. He came to fulfill the law. Therefore, you don't need to add extra law. That's what you're doing right now. You need to understand the spirit of Jesus. You need to look at the people who were there first.
So wait, what?
did
You
Jesus
are
do?
the
What
voice
did
of the
Jesus
spirit
say?
of Jesus now to tell me I don't
No.
understand the spirit of
I'm saying it's
Jesus.
up
That
for
is what a fucking
interpretation.
Protestant does.
It's up for interpretation, but to claim you know what the correct interpretation is very Catholic.
No. Actually, the opposite.
Yes.
To claim
No.
that you know the actual interpretation.
I never
but then
claimed it.
hold
I
on.
never claimed it. You
To
claim you
claim-
knew it, and I'm
claim-
covering you on.
To claim that you know the actual interpretation is a very Protestant thing to do. I am not claiming I know the actual interpretation.
You did. You
I
said
am claiming
Protestantism
that
is
I
the
want to
furthest.
get closer to the school that is the oldest one in the Christian tradition. That's what I'm claiming.
Why are you subscribing to a school? Your claim was that Protestantism.
Because I believe they hold the purest version of
She's
it.
interested in the school founded by Jesus, her God.
Yeah, you still haven't substantiated any claim you made. What is the essence of Christianity?
A church, not a book. And Protestants are all based on a book.
But Jesus proceeds. He came
I don't
proceeds
care,
from-
but I'm done with this.
Yeah, I can tell you're very emotional when it comes to this.
Well, yeah, because you're
No,
going in
because you're not
circles.
wanting to understand.
Yes.
You're not understanding.
I understand you
what I'm saying.
perfectly. I don't think you understand what I'm saying.
I
You're
don't
the one
have
who
to
made it
agree with you. You don't have to agree with me. I am
Oh, we're
explaining.
not.
I've never been a Christian, Samson. I've only been a Jew, but most of my exposure to Christianity was because of Protestants around me. That's just where I grew up.
Sure.
And this is exactly what annoyed me.
Yeah, but Protestantism in the U.S. is.
What?
Wait, whoa, slow down. How do you mean? What is exactly what annoyed you?
He's going in circles and circles and circles and circles, and she.
And you're saying you feel like that when you talk with Protestants from America?
Yeah.
Aha.
Okay.
Interesting.
So explain to me where the circle is. Isa made a claim that Protestants are the furthest from actual Christianity.
A circle are all points equidistant from a given point on a plane.
The circle, you're right.
But did she substantiate her claim, opinion?
Yeah, she substantiated by saying, I'm not fucking interested. That's it.
Right.
Like, that's it.
She said she reviewed many different strains of Protestantism and determined that they were misunderstandings of the teachings of her God that established a church that has a history and development structure that she would be curious to study in many of its different true strains.
So throwing that out just doesn't do it for her, and that's it.
I'm gonna expose the logical fallacy. Why did you have a schism then between the Catholics and the Orthodox?
Because
they resolved that internally. That's why it's a schism. They kept it in-house.
That is part of the history of why I'm interested more in the Orthodoxy than in the Catholicism. That was not part of the schism, and actually, when I learn and I read about why the schism happened, when I look into the whole filioque type of the philosophy of the trilogy shit of the Trinity, yes, trilogy.
That is pretty funny. Go on.
When I look into the whole philosophy of the Trinity, I tend to lean and agree more with the view of the Orthodox Church of what is the essence of God and what is the logic behind the Trinity. So, yeah, I have my reasons why I prefer to explore that aspect of the Orthodox Catholics. The fact that I was born into Catholicism, and these guys were fighting about some philosophy and some administrative hierarchies as well, and they split. They had a schism. I get it, and that's the reason why I also think the Catholic Church might not be the true church. You know, and as the more that I get into it and the more I learn about like the differences, the more I lean towards the Orthodoxy, whether it is because it just makes more sense to me or it's just because I feel that they are actually having like the true tradition. But the Protestants, definitely not. And I'm not criticizing their faith. They can be as close as Jesus as they want to be in their own belief. But the school of thought is definitely not the closest to what Jesus was, or to the tradition that Jesus left us.
Yeah, but can you give me an argument? Like I
already did the argument like 4 times. I've given you examples. Jesus didn't leave us a book. He left us a church. He left us an oral tradition, and they completely abandoned that.
And there's a history to it.
Isa, maybe if you repeat yourself a 5th or 6th time.
Maybe I will, yeah.
But Isa,
maybe he'll convert by the end of the conversation. Who knows?
Listen, Isa, you need to understand that the only thing I've done is essentially taking your arguments and using them against you. So like you said, Jesus left.
That would be how a conversation becomes a circle, Samson.
If you have another dimension, it's a sphere.
I'm glad you just acknowledged that your methodology for this conversation was in fact intentionally circular.
Return us to the beginning of the conversation.
And by definition, not actually a conversation, just simply a circular method of argumentation.
Now,
I'm demonstrating to her initial claim is wrong, and I'm trying to substantiate it right now.
What is the initial claim?
I must have missed that part with all of the circle
What is my
conversation.
initial claim? I already forgot. What is my initial claim? I already forgot.
Now, if
You
I
said
may
Protestants are the furthest away from the essence of Christianity,
yeah,
right?
Sam,
I'll
if I
explain
may
to you.
propose. So a circle's in 2 dimensions. If we add another dimension like sexuality, we can have a sphere.
Okay.
That's true.
You said Jesus left us a church, right? So what you mean by that is he left us 12 people. These 12 people, right? They went on, they preached, you know, and then they had a succession, you know, let's say, I don't know how many more people, but essentially the people who were part of this apostolic succession are today part of Orthodox Church, Catholic Church, and Protestant Church, and you cannot deny that. Therefore, per default, your argument falls flat.
The Protestant Church is not an apostolic church, sorry.
No, but the people who started it were apostolic, like you cannot argue against that.
But they separated from the school.
Wait, where do you think that?
And the way where you can see that they separated from the tradition is when they decided to go sola scriptura and also to remove the Septuagint, which are the books that actually are in the Bible that so the Septuagint Septuagint are the books that the apostles and Jesus used to teach people in their time, and that those were integrated in the Bible. And what the Protestants did is that they removed completely. There are like 20 books of those. They completely ignore them. They reject them, and they don't accept them as
But
part of the teaching.
you're pivoting right now. I said, where did they come from? The first Protestants. Which church were they part of?
Oh, from the Catholic one.
Exactly. So you are proving my point. That
How am I proving your point? These are
because
just
they were part of the apostolic succession.
No,
They
the
come out
Mormons also,
the
the Mormons also fell from the Catholic Church, and that doesn't mean that they're a fucking apostolic church. You're
are.
kidding.
Like, how do you get to this?
They're
Wait,
the original Native Americans. You know that, right?
This is
Yeah,
a family
that's
tree.
what- I mean, like,
They
hey,
made themselves over to
where
Salt Lake City.
do the Catholics come from? We come from the Jews. You know, that doesn't mean that we're Jews.
That's not what my argument is.
Yeah,
You need to
you're
understand.
saying
No,
that.
Isa,
You're trying to
Isa,
explain
just
the
listen.
pain of the man.
Don't hear what you want to hear. Jesus with people, right? These people left us with more people. All these people that have different ideas, different opinions, different ways of interpreting what Christianity is about. That's the reason you have different churches. You can't say that.
Your understanding is misinterpreted, and I'm gonna have to leave in 6 minutes because I have a call. But the Jesus left us a church. He didn't leave us a book.
I didn't say that.
Hold
Why
on,
do you keep repeating that?
hold on. Then there's one because they disagreed, and so we have two Catholic churches: the Orthodox one and the Roman one. And then there was this guy called Martin Lutero, who decided he was not in agreement with any of the shit that the Catholic Church was putting in front. He was not in agreement with the whole apostolic concept. He was not in agreement with the oral tradition. He was not in agreement with the Septuagint, and he decided to create his own religion based on a book that he corrupted. And then that is what Protestantism was, because he protested the tradition, he protested the church. He doesn't come from the apostolic.
I'm not saying he comes. The initial priests that were part of the Catholic Church.
Yeah, but exactly. But the way that it is disrupted is because they didn't believe in that. So you cannot claim that.
Believing in what? They have to believe in themselves. They're part of the succession.
Claim that the
Your
Protestants
focus
are
is
coming from the
completely
same.
wrong.
Yeah, they
You're
all
focusing on the wrong
believe
thing.
in Jesus, but that's
You're
the only thing
saying
they have in
you're
common.
saying you want to cut off a branch of the family tree because of their interpretation of Christianity.
Yeah, the tree can be.
But you're
You know what the
subscribing
tree
to
is?
a family tree. You're
The tree
subscribing
is-
to a family tree.
The tree, the roots of the tree is called Judaism, and that doesn't mean that we're Jews.
No.
The
That's a
Protestants.
straw man. That's a
No,
straw
no,
man.
no.
Lisa. Address what I'm
Jesus-
saying. Address what I'm saying. The 12
Jesus didn't create.
12
Jesus
apostles.
didn't create all these churches, Samson. That's where you're making a mistake. Jesus didn't create all these
He
churches.
passed the keys on to these 12 people. They kept passing it on unto this day. Okay?
Yeah, nobody
You cannot-
passed. Yeah, exactly. Nobody
You cannot
passed
cut
it.
off the branches.
Nobody passed
You're
it.
not allowed to cut off the branches.
Nobody passed
Which
it to the
circle are we
Protestants.
on?
The Protestants decided to leave the faith.
So who sounds more inclusive, me or you?
It's not about
You
inclusion.
control the movement
Fuck
conversation, me or
inclusion.
you?
Fuck
Are we
inclusion.
gonna
I
do
want
seven
to be
rules?
inclusive.
You are rigid.
Why do you think that I want to be
You fit in one
inclusive?
box. You're proving my point. You are
Why
not
do you
upright
think I want to be
interpretation.
inclusive?
Well,
Simon,
you said you
Simon,
want interpretation.
Samson.
You said you
Samson.
want philosophy.
Jesus, I think.
She called him Simon.
Samson,
Are we?
I don't
Sinora, this is what you want to avoid, is being like Issa. This is a waste of time, and it's neurotic and stupid. And basically, don't be like Issa, because she's stupid. Basically, what I'm trying to say is shut the fuck up. Don't talk. Because when you talk, you expose your ignorance and you're wasting your time. You're not educating yourself, you're not reading. So don't do what Issa does and everything will be okay.
I don't know. Actually, in fact, I had asked the OJ.
Don't forget, she said she had a call in 7 minutes.
To actually attend a synagogue and see like the whole essence of it. Now, I wouldn't be able to because I was busy. But yeah, I mean, like, who knows? Maybe that's the next step because I'm trying to get close.
She's trying to get close to the source, but this lazy bitch won't read a book.
And the reason why I'm actually so much is not because of my thing, it's just because you don't understand
whether people would accept you as a Jew or Messianic Jew. You said
I am actually agreeing with you. It doesn't expect being a Messianic Jew.
I want to be very clear that Messianic Judaism was created, I think, in 1966 or 1970 as a way to try and turn Jews into Christians. I get what you're saying. I'm saying the original Messianic Jew is Christianity. That's it. Like, you're already there. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but like independent study Christianity though. There's like some people on the app that are like, born Christians that want to practice Judaism as their way of following Christianity. We are in a post-enlightened, individualistic age in which people choose their own interpretation of their sacred texts and cultures. So yes, we now have Christian Jews and Jewish Christians. Welcome to reality.
Yeah, even within the Orthodox,
I'm just saying that, Isa, if you go act on this today and say, oh, I'm going to go find a Messianic church, and I call them churches. If you're going to go find one, just be aware that it's a complete neologism. That's it. That's all I want to say.
Right.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about
You're
it.
probably going to be more educated than like the quote minister there, because they're just like some random person that collected YouTube crap, and it's like a grip. I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah,
serious.
probably.
So
But that's the
just
thing, like,
proceed with caution.
in order to just, all I want is to get closer to the core philosophy. That's it. I'm not looking for God. I'm not looking to be spiritual or whatever. I'm not looking to become more
I get it.
religious.
You just want to talk to really smart Catholics. Is that fair?
Yeah, smart Catholics. There you go.
That's it.
Somewhere shortly.
Isa, have you ever read the
How about the
Confessions of
Jesuits?
St. Augustine? Have you ever read that?
Yes, I have. San
Did you
Augustine.
like it?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
He's a smart Catholic.
Yes, he's a very smart Catholic. I feel that defines our core and our philosophy. St. Augustine sums it up best.
Yeah, St. Augustine gave a just war theory.
But no, Samson, if you ask me to argue from like a faith or religious perspective, that's when I was saying to you, Jesus left us a church, not a book. And so when you see how the whole thing evolved into until the first Protestant came about, they are the furthest from that tradition. And yeah, I mean, like people can claim that, yeah, you can get to Jesus just a personal way, and that I don't deny that. That's up to them, that there's belief. I'm not judging that. I'm just saying that
how do you know of Jesus? Who told you about Jesus initially?
Oh my God, it doesn't matter. It doesn't
matter.
matter.
No,
You
it
need to
doesn't.
recognize that it does matter, because you need to acknowledge, you need to recognize that the reason you know of Jesus is because of the Gospels. Therefore,
Samson, you're so much better talking to Muslims.
Yeah, you
I think that. Or I'm just better than the Muslims.
I suck apparently, because you have become essentially the Muslims. You're so strong in your faith that you don't understand what I'm saying.
I didn't know.
Oh, we're so dumb.
Just
Please
listen.
educate us.
I didn't know you're dumb.
Please
Listen
educate.
to
No,
what
we
I'm
don't
listen to
understand.
what I'm
We're
saying
ignorant.
instead of
Well,
hearing
we're
from here.
Isa, I heard you a while back. I heard you
Stop
were
being a
already.
Muslim, Isa. Stop being a Muslim.
Oh my
okay?
gosh. Is this
Yo,
like
that's so
Christian
funny.
that
Everybody says that as like the ultimate like
Are
insult.
Because
you-
Isa is
are
acting
you
like a
Christian?
Muslim. She
How
should
dare you.
No, the only way she acted was like,
recognize that the
Take
only
that back, you silly turd.
I disagree. I think she acts more like a Jew. I think she acts more like a Jew, honestly.
No,
What?
I'm
You take that back, you filthy Jew.
Isa, you only know of Jesus because of the Gospels. And if
Facts.
I acknowledge that, I'm
That's fine, but also because of the church, because we read the Gospels.
But how does the church know Jesus?
How does the church know of the Jesus? Yeah.
Institutional
Okay,
records.
so we
Oh
know
my
the
God, the
Jews
oral
are-
tradition.
What's your-
Sure.
You know what you're
Okay,
doing.
so we know
What
through the
Isa,
Gospels.
what you're doing is you're saying, I don't want to consider the Torah at all. I only want to do Talmud. That's what you're saying.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that there are
Yes.
both.
They can't do
No.
that.
But you
Because
cannot
you're
interpret. You
discarding-
should not interpret the
you're discarding
Bible
the
on your
Gospels
own, but with the
completely,
guidance of the
Isa.
church.
You're
The
discarding
guidance
the
of the
Gospels
scholars.
completely when it comes to the essence of what Christianity is. Therefore,
No, what I actually am saying is that in order to understand, just like the Jews do, in order to understand scripture, you get the guidance of the scholars, which is the Talmud for them, which is the scholars for me, and which is the church for us. And we have many scholars that have written also, not in a compilation of scripts and dialogues like Jews, but we have also like scholars that can guide you to that. And there are books as well, like for example, again, the Septuagint, that is a link to the actual apostolic church and the apostolic tradition that the Protestants decided just to get rid of it.
Which year is it from? I'm going to prove you wrong. Which year is it from?
The Septuagint, I don't know, it's from the early years. I don't know exactly.
What is early years?
It's from the third. It's from the third century. It's from the 3rd century before the Common Era, and has nothing to do with apostolic tradition because there are no apostles when the Septuagint is written.
No, but what she means is that it's part of the apostolic tradition because
I'm talking about the Septuagint.
the followers of Jesus relied upon that translation. So their interpretations need the Septuagint, and the Protestants throwing it away is a slap in the face to their ancestors, the Christians.
Correct. Thank you, Mixad.
I get it.
But why are you throwing away Jesus?
The Protestants threw a lot of books away.
So there's a
Because they
train
want to
track.
Oh,
refine the research.
Catholic
There's a
culture.
train track and there's a station, and one identity gets on at station number 1, and the train travels for a distance, and another identity gets on at station number 2. What's the difference between these two identities? The only difference is that one got on earlier on the train track, and the second got on second on the train track. How do they differ from one another?
One forgets their ancestors.
Oh, that's easy to answer, actually.
That little bitch, she ran away. That scumbag.
Okay, how do they differ
also Devin.
other than the order in which they got on the track?
One
It's very simple.
of their ancestors.
If station 1 is Miami and station 2 is Fort Lauderdale, and you're talking about the folks that get on at station 2 in Fort Lauderdale,
Right.
they're not going to be able to understand and answer questions about Miami. Or if they try to, they may be informed, but they're likely to get some things wrong.
It'll be secondhand.
It's also that by the time when the person gets on at station 2, they get off at station 3 and get on a new train. The person who gets off at station 1 stays on the train.
Well, it could be in process you're describing, but it also could be that the person getting on later has insights that the person getting on first does not have.
Yes, and they would be errors.
Okay.
Jewish tradition and all traditions rely on what came before them. If you're missing what came before, you are somehow outside of the chain of transmission.
Okay.
I mean, the easiest example to see it is if you are studying from only English sources, texts that were written very specifically in let's say Hebrew or Aramaic, you don't know Hebrew or Aramaic, you're likely to have some errors in how you comprehend what is being transmitted or attempted to be transmitted, right? Like you have to have the foundation of what came before. You have to have the foundation of these ancient languages in order to not receive false understandings from what you're reading.
Which is why it's kind of interesting to watch the Christian movement fracture on such nuanced, interpretive grounds.
You know what I find interesting? The whole argument between Catholic and Protestant.
Yeah.
Like, it's very entertaining, especially when you add in that there is no tradition of Protestantism when it relates to Orthodoxy. Like, Orthodoxy has basically done its own thing. It hasn't really lost churches. Like, this tradition of Protestantism in all its forms, it's all been a reaction to specifically Catholicism.
Well, they didn't interact. They didn't interact with the Eastern Church that much.
Yes.
No. It's not about their interacting with the Eastern Church. If this was a feature of Christianity as a whole, one would expect Protestant traditions to have come out of Orthodoxy on itself for its own, in its own sake, in its own way.
I don't think that's right. The schism. I don't think that's right. because the schism between the Eastern Church and the Catholics was like that. What the Catholics were the Protestants relative to the Eastern Church. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, of course. But yeah, I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying. Right. For 1,000 years, the Orthodox Church has continued to exist, and for 1,000 years, there was not a Turkish or Russian.
I see what you're saying.
Like Martin Luther, right? There's no Martin Lutherov. Like that guy never existed. He never argued in such a way to create an actual schism, like from a theological basis. And I know Samson wants to talk about the schism of 2018, but that's really a political thing. It has no basis in actual religious differences.
So why did it hold in the East?
Well, I think that's for them to figure out why it held. Just from an outsider looking in, I think if I'm trying to assess the value of the total corpus of understandings between the various Christian denominations, the fact that the Orthodox have managed to hold it together for 1,000 years with no meaningful schisms, I think it indicates some strength in how their process, their history, their traditions initially were developed, and that's even ignoring the fact that one can reasonably argue that the Orthodox Church is the remnant of the original church.
Most people can't differentiate what they taught in that first beginning 1,000 years and the separate. They can't distinguish it.
So you're
that's
saying
also very true.
You're saying any Protestant that was seeking a deeper understanding of Christianity should really be looking beyond the Catholic Church to the Orthodox churches?
No, I'm not being instructive because that's not my place. But I'm saying there seems to be a fundamental flaw, both of Catholicism and pretty much all of the Protestant churches that came after it, because that entire Western Christian tradition, has continued over the 1,000 years to devolve into